Classic cars have an aura about them that brings you back to the time they were built. They hold a nostalgia that, when driving something like this 1968 330 GTC, takes you right to that period in time. Even as someone young, who was not even born when this car was built, it still is able to envision driving around in the late 60s, early 70s every time I turn the key. GTC first started production in 1966, and it only was produced until 1968. And the body was designed by Pininfarina. So what a lot of people think is that Ferrari makes these whole cars. But what actually happens is Ferrari hires someone like Pininfarina, Scaglietti, Bertoni, one of the coach builders, and this car was actually assembled, like the body components, the trim and everything was assembled in Turin at the Pininfarina's shop and then sent to Ferrari where they installed the mechanicals. So Ferrari was basically an engine builder, and that's how Enzo had set it up. That's what he wanted because he cared so much more about the engine and the performance of the car. He did, of course, care about the beauty and design, which is why he chose certain coach builders. You know, it's not like he just let anyone design his cars, but that's also where the whole matching numbers thing comes into play, because when the car, the chassis and body and everything were built, they'd stamp the chassis number into the car, and then for a car like this, when it left Turin and went to Ferrari and they installed the engine, they would stamp the engine with that same matching number as the chassis. So that's how that all came to be. And during this time period, Ferrari also wanted to put a line between their race cars and their road-going cars. So all of the road-going cars of this time, the serial numbers ended in an odd sequence. The 330 is definitely a comfort-driven car. It's a pure grand touring car. So of its era, the 330 and say something like the Daytona, they're comparable, but the Daytona for a long time overshadowed the 330, and it's an awesome car, but as time has gone by, stuff like the Daytona has stopped growing so much in desirability, whereas the 330 has skyrocketed. And a lot of that is due to pure comfort and ease of driving. So neither the 330 nor the Daytona have power steering, but the Daytona is kind of a beast. I mean, it's hard to manage, it's really heavy to steer. You're really getting a workout when you're driving this car around. Whereas the 330 steering, even though it isn't power steering, it's light, it's responsive, it's easy to maneuver, even when you're parallel parking or parking in the showroom. It's a lot easier to manage. And it was focused, like the design of the car was built around the grand touring. So it's great for road trips and long distance driving. It has a big trunk, it has the luggage shelf behind the seats. It's just more aimed towards that grand touring long distance versus the sportier kind of take it to the track and then take it home cars. The 330 engine is the Colombo V12 engine that Ferrari is so well known for, and it's based off the 275 engine, just the enlarged version. So if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know what I'm about to say about the engine and the naming system of this car. The 330 stands for 330 cc's per cylinder times the 12 cylinders, so you get your displacement of roughly 4 liters. And the GTC in the name stands for Grand Touring Coupe. Now, one of the things I love and find really interesting, 275 GTB, the B stands for Berlinetta. And whether it's Berlinetta or coupe, they both mean hardtop or fixed top, but the B they use on their sportier cars, whereas the C, the coupe, they use on their grand touring, more long distance driving cars. So they use that one little kind of difference in the two names to really separate them out, and so you can really tell what the intention of each car was. As you would come to expect from Ferrari, when you sit in this car, it just drips luxury. Of course, everything is leather, from the headliner, seats, door panels, and the wood steering wheel, the wood dash. And I always love Veglia gauges because the instrument cluster, it just has that timeless feel to it. Just the black against the white, and they're large gauges. It just feels great. The visibility in this car is amazing. So I've been in so many cars where you can't see out the sides. I mean, driving around a Countach, it's you really cannot see when you're changing lanes what's next to you. You kind of just have to know you're going faster than any other cars that could be next to you to know that you're going to get over without hitting someone. Whereas this car has the greenhouse effect. So it has very thin pillars, which makes the visibility amazing. You can see basically all corners of the car all around it. So when you're driving, not only is it comfortable, but the visibility really makes a huge difference. The 330 was produced at a time when Ferrari didn't really have high production numbers. So they only made 600 of this car. And when you think of that, like today, that's very limited production. But back then, that was more mass produced. So the 330 was also one of the production models, the first one to have the 330 name put as a badge on the back of the car. Before that time, that was really reserved for the speciales, the one-off models. So like for the 330, they made 4 speciales for 4 very high-end clients. They'd make a lot of modifications to fit whatever that client wanted. But because it was the beginning of their mass production, I mean, if you look not many years later into the 70s with like Daytonas, they made well over 1,000. So it was really when they were starting to ramp up production. And I love this era of car because it's that kind of historic classic era before the cars were mass produced. They just hold just such a significance. Of course, I love the 275 and the Daytona, but it's really not in question why the 330 has become so popular in recent years. It really gives you everything. You have that front engine V12 power, the sophistication, the beautiful body lines, the luggage, the comfort, and of course the sound of that V12 engine when you drive. So it's definitely become a very popular model, and I only see that continuing in the future. I hope you guys have liked this video and learned a little something new about the 330 GTC. If you like this, then please subscribe and stay tuned because we got a lot more coming very soon.